Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. It really does mean a lot when you have, one, a verified guy on Twitter on your tennis channel, and two, a guy that's so involved with not just tennis gear, but sports gear in general. So, Tim, thank you so much for coming onto the channel for us today.
My pleasure, Phil. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So, Tim, let's just start off where you came from and how you ended up in this space, because everyone has a passion for this kind of stuff, but it's hard to make a living out of it. How did you kind of take that sneakerhead knowledge into this world?
Yeah, for me, it was kind of just a path that started with journalism, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
to begin with. I was a high school sports journalist for a small town paper, coming out of college, which I'm not going to date myself, but, you can tell how long ago that was.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing that, and I started doing freelance work on top of that, making different connections with different types to magazines publishing, and pretty much got connected into the sports world through, Time Magazine and Sports Illustrated and some work I was doing with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so really with Sports Illustrated, when I wrote for them a few years back, there was an angle for them where they were covering sports really well and the games and the athletes, but, they weren't doing a lot of stuff of off the field, off the court.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of opened an avenue for me to really explore the gear a lot. Yeah. And that's expanded. And my personal enjoyment of tennis, has allowed me to kind of push that envelope. I've written for Tennis Magazine, Racquet Magazine, obviously, Forbes and,
Mm-hmm.
Various places. So, whether it's outdoor gear, just, basketball sneakers or the tennis gear, rackets and
Mm-hmm.
sneakers, it's just been kind of a fun way for me to get involved.
I love that. And did you play tennis in college, or was that kind of your hobby that turned into
more hobby? I looked you up, and you played junior circuit and college tennis and everything, and so we're not going to sign up for you and I doing a head-to-head or
no
anything.
we could and see what happens.
Let's call it recreational level. That's what I like to.
That's fair.
That's what I like to use.
I totally agree. And for you, Tim, what was your first piece, if you could remember? What was the first piece of gear you wrote about?
That's a great question. I've been a freelance journalist now for over a decade, and
Mm-hmm.
People will ask me, "What are you working on right now?" And it's like I can't even remember what I did yesterday. I've probably got 10 to 20 articles in the works at all times. Various
Wow.
stages of research, writing, editing. Whatever stage it's in. And deadlines every day and everything. So I can't even remember what I filed yesterday, let alone what I need to file tomorrow. It's just getting through each day. But I remember one of the biggest early pieces. So I don't know if it was the first one, but one of the biggest early ones I did for Sports Illustrated was actually on, back when University of Oregon and Nike, kind of did that whole, the football uniform thing, which is
the neon colors and
all that stuff, which is so old now. But, I remember doing a big feature for Sports Illustrated on why schools were doing that. Cause I think Oklahoma State was kind of the next one in, and Arizona State got in on the action. Some of those programs that didn't have the storied history, like a Texas or a Alabama or a
USC,
or whatever. They're trying to get eyeballs basically on their program from young recruits. So I did a feature on that, and that was kind of a fun one.
I feel like it's not just in tennis, but in general, is it more when players or teams do that, when it comes to that eyeball catching movement, is that more, I'm not going to call it a publicity stunt, but what would you call it when a team goes out of their way to do something that extravagant?
I think it depends on, where you are. If it's a college team, the number one thing is it's always about recruiting. To bring this back to tennis, that brings up, a couple of years ago, remember when Nike had that Roland Garros collection with all the little, so all their apparel with all those little, I forget, figurines and different, little pieces on them.
It was the Nike French Open, I think from 2019. Are you talking about the one from 2019?
Yeah, I think it was about then.
The croissant, the Eiffel Tower, the cannonballs, the photography, the fedora. I actually bought that shirt for my dad, and there's a video on my channel of him wearing it, and I had him dress up in the whole French Open collection. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah. So you have something like that where, yeah, people like you are going to buy it as it's a fun thing.
Oh,
That's not going to be a mass appeal. You know, everybody at the club is wearing that.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, that was the most talked about outfit of that season, of that Grand Slam. So you're going to see brands do that, mix it in just to get some buzz and get some talk about. And so I think if it's a team, you know, if it's a college team, it's about recruiting. You know, and getting awareness of, you know, people that maybe wouldn't have looked at you otherwise. And if it's a brand, you know, everything about brand is marketing, right? So it's, you know, getting somebody maybe talking about you that wouldn't have, you know, maybe somebody who's not following tennis was like, hey, that's a really cool shirt. What's Nike doing in the tennis space that maybe, you know, I can bring over to whatever I'm into. And maybe they're bringing in a new customer that they wouldn't have connected with otherwise.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that, because when you talked about Nike and that niche, it wasn't even just a collared shirt. It was the black and kind of off-white color one with the tree, the skeletons, even for their Wimbledon collection, for those that remember that piece. It's interesting to see what they did and to gain that audience, because I thought that was cool. But some people were like, this is too outlandish. This is too out there for the sport of tennis. What would you say to that, to people that I guess don't really get what Nike's trying to do, or any company is trying to do with that kind of situation?
Yeah, I think a lot of people maybe don't realize that if you're a Nike or an Adidas or some of those brands, tennis is not a large piece of your puzzle. I mean, obviously, you know, if you're looking at just shoes, running is, you know, the king of everything. You know, that's just what people buy are running shoes, because you're walking or you're running or you're just lifestyle, you know, and from there you've got, you know, the whole lifestyle. You know, you can go down the list, you know, and then basketball and cleats, you know, whether it be football, soccer. Tennis is pretty far down the list for all of these brands. So really they're obviously wanting to serve the core customer, and there's lots of products that do, but they also want to attract a new customer. So they're going to mix in, you know, a little bit of everything. And, you know, people get excited about what do you see on those, you know, those, really it's the 3 Grand Slams. Cause in all reality, the Wimbledon stuff, you know, we all know it's going to be all white. There's not a lot. I mean, sometimes they have some cool, you know, shirts with, you know, dry fit type technologies, but really you're looking to see what they're going to do in Australia. But the French Open, because of the Paris fashion, and the US Open because of the New York nightlife, those are kind of the 2 big ones that people look to. And so, yeah, you can't expect them to do the same thing every time. It's, you know, just like you maybe liked, you know, one and somebody else really didn't like it. Well, then the next one, it could be flipped. We're not all the same. That's why there's so much different product out there. So they've got to try to appeal to as many different folks as they can.
It's interesting when you said Wimbledon too, because I have the Nike white collared, but they imprinted a vest, that different texture one, and I still wear that to work. And people are always commenting on it because they go, oh, that looks like a short. And I'm like, what's that? It's a sweater and shirt. I'm like, I can't wear this anymore. I have to burn it and then never bring it back to work. But it's those kind of things that really draws the attention to the consumer, I guess.
Yeah, and everybody has their own thing. I mean, some people are gonna buy a product. I remember talking to ASICS, you know, a few years ago. I was in Tokyo, you know, talking with them about, you know, different product, and it's like, well, what sells? It's always white. White is their number one seller for all their tennis shoes. And ASICS has some pretty unique colors, you know, that maybe, you know, aren't as common in the United States as they would be in different areas. But it all goes back to white, because you have that huge group of people that I just want basic clean, whether it's a black shirt or a white shirt, or, you know, same thing on the shoes. But then you also have those people that, hey, I want something bright. I want something different than what everybody has. And that style may change too. It's like you maybe thought that was cool 5 years ago, and then somebody at the office is like, I wouldn't pull that off. And then all of a sudden that's not as cool, but you still want something unique, so you go for something different.
Absolutely. And that actually brings me on to the other, it's rival company, I guess, with Adidas this year, with what's going on with their style. And I know you're nodding along because you might know where I'm going with this. They don't have a lead designer, do they? Or is that this whole Ocean concept just going to be pushed until the season ends?
You know, they've been pushing the parlay for the Oceans in tennis for a little while now.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was curious to see, you know, what they're going to do with it. And they just keep going with it.
Yeah.
And they're really huge on it in tennis, and they don't seem as, and I could be wrong, but they don't seem as big on it in other areas. Obviously,
Not really.
they have Dominic Thiem is, you know, posting about that a lot, and he's really into it personally, it seems personally as well. And, you know, obviously it's nobody wants plastic in the oceans. It's a great cause.
Of
you
course.
can't really argue any of that. But from a design point of view, it's really unique what they're doing. And I know they're not getting a lot of love based on, you know, comments on my Twitter, you know, posts of, you know, their Roland Garros outfits. And, you know, it's a unique look, and honestly not sure what they're doing in tennis right now.
Yeah.
You know, the new barricade is out. So that's, you know, something that was kind of a big move for them. But as far as tennis apparel, it does seem to be, hey, let's push our connection with parlay and go from there. So, you know, I don't know. I haven't seen what they had for US Open. So, you know, maybe we'll get something different, but I would be surprised if we do.
It just makes, again, with the barricade that you just mentioned, the barricade, the VaporTen that they now have exclusively for women, the Ubersonics, they have a variety, Soul Course, Boost Court. They have about 4 to 5 different lines of shoes just for Adidas. Nike, on the other hand, I don't know why they got rid of the GP Turbo as fast as they did, because I love that shoe. I absolutely think that's one of my favorite shoes. But,
you know, it's funny you say that, because the GP Turbo replaced the Zoom, what was it, the Zoom Zero?
Yeah.
You know, the Zoom Zero came out brand new, completely new design for them. Lasted not even a year, about a year.
Yeah.
And the GP Turbo was supposed to be the second. It was basically the second Zoom Zero.
Yeah.
You know, you have you guys like Tiafo that are still wearing that. Osaka obviously wears the GP Turbo. I enjoy the Zoom Zero better than the GP Turbo.
Really?
I think they're both good shoes. But yeah, it's like they're constantly you know, redoing the lines. You got, you know, as you mentioned with Adidas, and I don't know who's running the tennis design. I know in Nike they did a complete reshuffle of their entire organization. That's, you know, no secret, you know, that they took all these different lines and they put them in all these different just the administrative way they did it. And so tennis got completely moved, and you have different people working on it that, you know, that weren't before, and you have people that were working on it that aren't with the company any longer for various reasons. So, you know, some of it is that, and some of it's, you know, briefs of, here's a price point we need to hit. Here's the, you know, I mean, and that's why you go to any of the big names sites, and it's like, well, yeah, you can get this shoe for this much, you know, and there's different price points, and that's, you know, it's all marketing and all business model.
It's different, because I think the Zoom Light I tested out, and I didn't like that shoe at all, because I thought it's cheap. It's cheaper side of their shoe market. $80, you get what you get. And then as soon as you go up, you get the GP Turbos, the new Vapors, which seemed like a lot of people were still using the VaporTens, which I did think that was very interesting, because only a few have switched over to either the NXT or the new Vapor. But can you talk to us a little bit about why a lot of them just stayed with the VaporTens?
I don't know if there's a more loved on-court tennis sneaker than the VaporTen.
Really?
I just don't. From what I hear, I just don't know if there is. I personally love the VaporTen.
Yeah.
It's low to the ground, you know, which a lot of people want, but you still have that Zoom cushioning, and I love the fingers. You know, the fingers that wrap up it, you know, it's supportive. So I think people like the fit, and they like the feel, you know, kind of to the ground. And I think they did a great thing. You know, I would argue it's one of the greatest on-court tennis sneakers of all time.
Most popular.
And talking with Tinker Hatfield, he says it's the most underrated. You know, obviously he designed it, so of course he's going to promote it. But you know,
of course,
Tinker's a genius, right? So you know, he says it's the most underrated tennis shoe of all time, and I don't think you can argue that.
I don't think so either. And staying along that path of Nike shoes, this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring you on here, was because of the signature shoes that are coming out with tennis players and with Coco Gauff, with Naomi Osaka. And since we're on that line with Nike, Naomi Osaka's signature shoes that are coming out, it's just a GP Turbo, but the designs that she's coming out with are more bold and more interesting than any tennis shoe that we've seen, I think, in the last 5 to 8 years, to be honest.
The one thing that Nike has is it has that connection across sports, right? They've been, I mean, they're the undisputed leader of basketball. And if you think of like sneakerhead culture, it's obviously Jordan brand.
Yeah.
It's basketball. You know, we all know Jordan brand's owned by Nike.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing that wealth of designer knowledge, that wealth of, you know, connections to different designers and playing that up. You know, one thing I do want to point out is that it's not a signature for Osaka.
Yeah.
It's a player exclusive. So,
okay.
So really, if you think about it, if you think about tennis, the tennis world, there are only 2 signature models now as of Sunday.
Yeah.
July 25th, when New Balance and Coco unveiled their signature.
Mm-hmm.
The only other signature model is also a very recent one, is the On shoe from Roger, the Roger from On. You know, now you might be hard pressed to find it, to buy it, because they've limited runs on that shoe. But those are the only 2 signatures, because even the Rafa shoe is a player exclusive.
And it's combined with 3 different other shoes, because it's the cage, it's the
cage.
It's just the cage, or is, because I've heard it's combined with, it's like mixed between 2.
Well, it depends if you're talking about Rafa's shoe or the shoe that you're buying online.
Rafa shoe that he wears on court is so different from the one that sells to the masses.
Yeah, Rafa, well, I mean, obviously his foot issues are highly publicized.
Yeah.
You know, all these high-level athletes, I mean, they're getting their, you know, Nike has an entire section at their headquarters where they're making gear specifically for their high-level athletes. So it's like the shirt that you're, you know, you got a Nike shirt on, you know, if Rafa's going to wear that shirt, well, they made it exactly to his specifications based on his exact body type. So they do the same thing with the shoes. Serena's another example. You know, Serena's had a lot of ankle issues. And so, you know, they're crafting, you know, Rafa's shoe he wears on court, Serena's shoe she wears on court. You know, they're one of a kind because they're crafted specifically for them. So if you're talking about a signature model, I can go online. Well, August 26th, I can go online to New Balance and buy the New Balance Coco CG1. And for the most part, that's the same shoe. I mean, they might, you know, some tweaks for her foot might be different. She, I know, has like, I think I mentioned in my article that I had, the laces have her brother's names on them. Yeah. That's not going to be, you know, we're going to get stock laces if we buy it online for $170. So
that's the retail price.
That'll be the retail price. Yeah. Wow. So, but it's got a carbon fiber plate. So it's not like I mean, obviously that's a high price for a pair of shoes, but it's also up there. Interesting to note that the Roger shoe
is $210.
Is the other one with the carbon fiber in it as well. So the 2 tennis shoes with the carbon fiber, at least the 2 retail tennis shoes with the carbon fiber are the 2 signature shoes. Yeah. So back to my point on the Rafa is you go buy the cage. Yeah. You know, you can buy the cage shoe, or you can buy the cage shoe with the Rafa logo on it. So, you know, you can kind of buy it's not a signature. It's not the Rafael Nadal shoe, whatever. And that's the same thing that ASICS has done, right? You know, they have the Novak. It's tacked on the end. It's not his signature model. It's the Court. What is it? The Court FF? Yeah. You know, kind of styled for Novak. You know, that's the term I use. It's not an official term, but it's like it's styled for Nadal. It's styled for Novak. Styled for Osaka. So yes, she has. She's going to have a different colorway. It's a player exclusive colorway, and we can buy those sometimes. And the Osaka, Nike has done a good job making those available for people that want to buy the Osaka colorway. So, but yes, back to your original point. Now that I realize I've rabbit trailed completely,
it's totally fine. I love that.
Is, you know, and if you like the GP Turbo, obviously that's what Osaka is wearing. And they have done some fun stuff, color wise. And if that's what you like, then that provides an opportunity to get something unique and different.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's funny because I like that difference between the PE, and we always see that with Jordans when they have a PE come out, which is very rare, but there's a lot of them that come with UNC and Oregon, especially with those PEs, that Novak's, it's just a logo. When you say PE and you're seeing those, it's just the players licensing their logo to the manufacturer that are produced. Because with Sinner's new logo coming out, I don't know if they're going to do the Cage 4s, or what is he wearing now? He went back to
Put me on the spot because I don't have the answer for that
no,
one.
No. Yannick went back to another one, and he just came out with his own logo. That's
Right.
probably going to be on his Nike gear. Dominic Thiem just came out with his own logo as well that he's been wearing a lot. Who else? Zverev now has his. He's always had his on his Adidas shoes. So it's those that we don't get to buy but are on their gear because it's only theirs, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And it can be fun when they throw that on the website for us to purchase. You know, if you're a fan of that particular player and you're a fan of the shoe they wear, then it makes it double fun to get the shoe they wear and the one that you like wearing with their logo on it. And then that's different than the other that most folks have too.
Exactly. And I wanted to get onto that signature shoe part because we'll talk about, I believe we'll finish with Coco Gauff's because I feel like that's just a topic that we can go on forever about. With Nike, do we think Osaka's going to come out with her own shoe? Because I feel like Serena's shoe that she always wore, was that her design, or did they just brand that as Serena's shoe? Because I feel like I don't see that many people wearing that type of style. And I think only recently that they sold her style of shoe with the ankle covering.
Yeah. So Nike did a few different things. It was the Flare.
Okay.
And it's not available any longer. It's a discontinued shoe. You can't go online and buy it, but you could for a while. She was wearing, I mean, she started her career in the Air Max.
Yeah.
Her Nike careir, I should say, because she was obviously
with Reebok and Puma.
She was, had folks before, signing the Nike deal, which, obviously with the name on the building now at worldwide headquarters for
absolutely.
Nike, you got to expect her there. I've always been surprised that Nike didn't do a signature model for her. I don't know why. Part of me wonders if it's because her shoes are so highly customized that the Flare was kind of the basis for what they created for her. So to work with her at the level that she played at and the specific needs she had as with her ankles and whatnot. So Nike didn't do a signature model for Serena. Nike didn't do a signature model for Nadal, and Nike didn't do a signature model for Roger. So, the history would say, well, why would they do one for Osaka? Rafa, Roger, and Serena all over 20 Grand Slams and all legends in the game. And, whatever you think of Osaka, she's got 4? And the legend status would be a bit early, especially for somebody who the talk now is how much longer is she even going to play?
Don't say that.
That's the talk, she's, and so the amount of money that a company has to invest in creating a signature shoe is large. It's usually an 18-month to 2-year process. Ooh. You have an athlete that you're obviously tied to because you're spending a lot of money to have their name, and obviously they are with Osaka already. But then to go into an 18-month, 2-year process, you don't want them. Not saying maybe they come out with one tomorrow that I don't know about, but
surprise.
Not saying they're not working on one, but at the same time, in order to do that, there's got to be some stability there. And I don't know if that's there. Nike hasn't shown a history of doing that. I have always thought if they were going to do a signature model, they should have done one for Serena. Do that, the legendary female athlete. So I think what they've done with Osaka is they've done these collections. They've done these lines with the apparel and then the player exclusive models. Mm-hmm. And I would anticipate that continuing just because that seems to be what they've done.
And with those signature lines, Coco Gauff breaking boundaries at when she signed her $1 million deal with New Balance at 14, I believe.
Yep.
At 14, signed $1 million deal, gets her own signature shoe, which, again, as of recently, only one other player has done that, and that was Roger Federer. What, again, you said 18 months to 2 years of work. What does that mean for the tennis world for her to get her own shoe? Because that's so rare.
You know, I think it's fun. You know, I think it opens up, you know, something unique. New Balance is about, you know, I forget what their motto is, fearlessly independent or something like that, because they are an independent brand and, you know, based, you know, up there in Boston. I think it's cool what they did is for some reason, I mean, tennis, you know, as I've written about, is, you know, they started the signature trend. I mean, the first ever, you know, signature shoe in the sport was actually, you know, the Jack Purcell, which came from badminton, but, you know, from you know, but it was used in tennis. And then obviously everybody knows about the Stan Smith and Rod Laver. And I mean, all, you know,
Jimmy Connors too did All-Star, didn't he?
Connors had one. Billie Jean King had one. Chris Everett had one.
McEnroe?
Mac never had a signature because of Nike. So the Air Trainer 1, which is kind of his signature, was the Nike Air Trainer 1.
Okay.
You know, it became the Bo Jackson kind of big deal by the 3.
Exactly.
But, so, you know, there's a list of, you know, I'm missing, you know, there's quite a few of those 70s, 80s players, you know, whether it be Edberg or Becker with Puma. I mean, there were a lot of signature models in that 70s, 80s era. And then we went into an era with no signatures. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's fun that New Balance is saying, hey, you know, let's do the signature model. You know, let's do it with a female athlete, which is kind of fun. Obviously, basketball has been male dominated for quite a while now. We're starting to see the female athlete get some signature models in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, you know, what New Balance is doing by investing in Coco and investing in the sport, you know, hopefully they're signifying, you know, this is where we're going. This is what we're doing. We're investing money in the athlete and in the technology to make this work, you know, and hopefully others follow suit.
So for New Balance too, there's 2 big names that signed with the brand, Kawhi Leonard, and not even an athlete, but a celebrity and rapper, Jack Harlow. Mm-hmm. When you have people like that in kind of that inner circle, and you have the basketball background in creating shoes, and I said this on the Coco Gauff video I made earlier this week, it looks like a combination between the ankle of Kyrie Irving's Nikes and a little bit of KD's. Am I wrong to assume that, or does it kind of have that basketball look?
You know, I think why you say I watched that video, I think I was thinking, you know, why did he go that direction? I think why you went that direction is because it has the 90s look. And if you think back, you know, I keep saying I've written about this, but I remember doing a story on you know, the basketball and tennis used to be super intertwined as far as sneakers. With
the Converse, right?
Well, just even with design teams were very intertwined between the 2 sports. If you look at a 90s basketball shoe and a 90s tennis shoe, they look a lot more similar than a 2022 basketball shoe and a 2022 tennis shoe. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why some people gravitate stylistically to a Nike shoe a lot, is because they have that same synergy still with their basketball team. Their tennis team and their basketball team have started working together again in the last few years. You mentioned you know, I think in that video you mentioned the Kyrie Kyrgios crossover.
Yes, I did. Which is another one which I loved, and we should talk about after your speech.
So, you know, so you have some of that, but so to answer your question, I don't know that it's as much a, you know, hey, you know, we're going to borrow ideas from Nike, because certainly New Balance.
No, absolutely not. But it just has that basketball feel.
You know, that has the basketball feel because, yes, the brand is in basketball now, but also because it's the 90s look. And I think the 90s styles are very similar. And she went mid-top. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the other reason you're saying that.
exactly.
I mean, obviously Wilson has the Amplifeel.
Yeah, but
You know, they still sell
name me one player that wears the Amplifeels.
Exactly, but it's I think the only, and I think I'm wrong because I think there's one other and I can't remember the name of it, but there's no high top tennis shoes, right? Nobody wears, you know, even
the.
You know,
hold on, I have it here.
Oh yeah,
the
there you go.
Sticons.
The Sticon. Yeah. The Sticon. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was the other one that I was thinking of because it becomes the whole ankle support rather than just the foot.
Right. So I think the reason that when you see the Coco CG1 and think basketball is because it's the mid-top, it's the 90s. And you think back to the 90s, you think the AirTech Challenge 2, you think the Air Trainer 1.
Thank you.
You know, again, those are, you know, mid-top styles that were popular in the day. We do need to bring back the Supreme Courts that Courier wore.
Please.
My favorite shoe that has never been retroed. But, you know, we're talking about signatures. You know, don't get me started. So we're talking about signatures. I think the reason that you felt basketball when you saw Coco was because it has that feel.
It has that feel. And I think going along those lines with, and I know I've taken too much of your time, so I'll finish with this question. How come we have so many signature shoes in the NBA, but we have so many more players globally around the world for tennis? How come we don't see as many signature shoes for tennis players as we do for basketball?
Yeah, I think there's two answers to that, and they both come back to money, obviously.
Fantastic.
So number one is what I talked about earlier. Basketball is a much bigger slice of the pie than tennis. Now, if you're talking about like a Wilson or a Babolat or a Yonex or some of these, I don't know, you know, they maybe just don't have the resources to make a signature shoe at the same level because they're so focused on the other equipment like, you know, strings and rackets, obviously. So when we're talking about a Nike, Adidas, New Balance, kind of those big, what we would consider a sneaker brand, right? You know, tennis is such a small slice of the pie for them that to spend the money on that, they obviously don't feel until New Balance decided otherwise. Obviously haven't felt that it's a good business decision to do that.
Okay.
And the other risk is something we talked about with Osaka. So let's say, and really you can put Sophia Kinnan in this mix. You can put, say, look at Sophia Kinnan. She had, you know, a great FILA deal, one of the top players in the world, gets hurt. She had the emergency surgery or whatever it was. Yeah. It's been out of the game for a while. I don't know if you watched, you know, the Monday, the 26th, when she played Coco in the exhibition. Obviously,
lost a point to a ball boy. I'm just going to put that out there right now.
Her form's not where she would want it to be. Yeah. And I'm not trying to pick on her. She's lovely to chat with. But let's take this to Osaka. Let's say Osaka decides, you know, I'm going to play the majors. I'm going to play 2 majors a year, and that's all I'm going to do. Or let's say I'm Ash Barty and I want to be done. You know, it's like in the NBA, you have a player, you know, they're going to be on a team. Now, sure, you've had the Rose situation with Adidas. You've had the Carmelo Anthony, you know, eventually. But for the most part, you know that big name KD, he is going to be on a big market team, right? Yeah. Whether or not he's, you know, argue all you want about his level of play. Argue all you want about Harden and how much he travels and doesn't travel and all that. They're going to be on big market teams getting big exposure. Yeah. If you're Naomi Osaka and you're not playing the U.S. Open, there's no exposure for Nike. Yeah. And the other big issue you have is it's hard to argue that some of these big name NBA teams are not going to be playing deep in the playoffs, right? Yeah. You know, you have the Warriors. You know, how many titles have they won in the last few years or whatnot? Yeah. You know, barring that blip, they're getting a lot of exposure. They're on ESPN constantly. Their deep runs in the playoffs, that is so much exposure. If you're an individual athlete, and it's an issue with golf, it's an issue with tennis, you know, it's an issue with Olympic sports, there's no guarantee. I mean, it's an issue with tournaments selling tickets. Yeah. There's no guarantee that Naomi Osaka is playing at all right now. And then if she enters a tournament, let's say she's in US Open, there's no guarantee she's playing past the first round. So you're going to spend a lot of money on something that's already a small piece of your pie with no guarantee for exposure.
Yeah. And it comes down to that idea. And this is a whole nother conversation, but with prize money for players, you have to play to earn your salary. There's no guaranteed money. No matter where you go, you're spending money to make money, which in tennis is a flawed ideal and system, but it's the reality of it. And I think that's that Steph Curry and Golden State Warrior point also ties into the Chinese market, where you have Klay Thompson being sponsored by a Chinese basketball shoe, right? Mm-hmm. And same thing with Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade's still on TV. He still has his deal. I think he's on his 15th signature shoe for them. Like,
in a while now. Yep.
Exactly. So you have people that are constantly in the rotation, and if you're not playing, you're not being a part of the conversation at all.
Right.
Which is the hardest part. And Tim, I really do appreciate you talking about this. I could talk about this with you all day, but I just appreciate the 45 minutes that I had you on here. So I went a little bit over, but it was a lot of fun, Tim. Tim, is there anywhere that people can check out your work besides your Twitter handle?
You know, the best place to go is my Twitter handle, at TD Newcomb on Twitter. And, you know, that's where you're going to see my work. It's not all just tennis.
It's not.
You know, such is the nature of a freelance journalist. So bear with me on there. And then, I appreciate people taking a look. And also just started like a week ago a new Instagram account called Felt Alley Tennis. So I'm just trying to post I'm trying to post some tennis gear, you know, as it comes across. So check out Instagram, Felt Alley Tennis, and you'll get some gear posts. I won't inundate you, don't worry. So just some fun stuff there.
All right, so go make sure to follow him. All those are down in the description below. I really appreciate it. And Tim, thank you again for joining me today.
My pleasure, Philip. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.